Economics for hard times. Economics for hard times. There are many contents. I have took the content from the mouth of the shark. Page number 10. Chapter 2. From the mouth of the shark. Migration is big news, big enough to drive the politics of much of Europe and the United States. Between President Donald Trump's imaginary but enormously consequential hordes of murderous Mexican migrants and the anti-foreigner rhetoric of the Alternative for Germany, the French Rassemblement National, and the Brexit crew. Not to mention the ruling parties in Italy, Hungary, and Slovakia. It may be the single most influential political issue in the world's richest. It may be the single most influential political issue in the world's richest countries. Even politicians from the mainstream European parties are struggling to reconcile the liberal traditions they want to uphold with struggling European parties are struggling to reconcile the liberal traditions they want to uphold with the threat they see across their shores. It is less visible in the developing world, but the fights over Zimbabwean refugees in South Africa, the Rohingya crisis in Bangladesh, and the citizenship bill in Assam, India have been equally frightening for those who are its targets. Why the panic? The fraction of international migrants in the world population in 2017 was roughly what it was in 1960 or in 1990, 3%. The European Union on average gets between 1.5 million and 2.5 million non-EU migrants every year from the rest of the world. 2.5 million is less than 1/2 of 1% of the EU population. Most of these are legal migrants, people with job offers or those who arrived to join their families. There was an unusual influx of refugees in 2015 and 2016, but by 2018 the number of asylum seekers to the EU was back to 638,000 and only 38% of the requests were granted. This represents about 1 for every 2,500 EU residents. That's it. Hardly a deluge. Racist alarmism, driven by a fear of the intermingling of races and the myth of purity, doesn't heed facts. A survey of 22,500 native respondents from 6 countries where immigration has been a defining political issue, France, Germany, Italy, Sweden, the United Kingdom, and the United States, revealed massive misperceptions about the number and composition of immigrants. For instance, in Italy, the actual share of immigrants in the population is 2%, but the average perception of that share is 26%. Respondents starkly overestimate the share of Muslim immigrants as well as the share of immigrants coming from the Middle East and North Africa. They believe immigrants are less educated, poorer, more likely to be unemployed, and more likely to live on government handouts than they actually are. Politicians stroke these fears by abusing the facts. In the run-up to the 2017 French presidential election, Marine Le Pen frequently claimed that 99% of immigration were adult males. 88% were, and that 95% of migrants who settled in France were taken care of by the nation because they wouldn't work in France. In reality, 55% of migrants in France were in the labor force. Two recent experiments show this is a winning electoral tactic, even in a world of systematic fact checking. In one study in the United States, researchers worked with two sets of questions. One set aimed to solicit respondents' opinions about migration, the other their factual knowledge of numbers characteristics of migrants. Those who answered the fact-based questions first before being asked their opinion and thus reminded of their own distorted perceptions about migrants were significantly more likely to be against immigration. When not their bottom line views on immigration, France, a parallel experiment found something similar. People deliberately exposed to Marine Le Pen's false claims were more likely to want to vote for her. Sadly, this persisted after her statements were fact-checked in front of them. Truth did not sway their opinions. Simply thinking about migration makes people more partial. The facts aren't allowed to get in the way. There is an important reason why facts are ignored, and it is based on a piece of economics seemingly so utterly self-evident that many find it impossible to think past it. Even when the evidence says the opposite, the economic analysis of immigration often comes down to a seductive syllogism. The world is full of poor people who would obviously earn a lot more if they could find their way here, wherever that might be, where things are clearly much better, therefore, given half a chance, they will indeed leave wherever they are and come to our country. And this will drive down wages and make most of us already here worse off. What is remarkable about his argument is its faithfulness to the standard expression of the law of supply and demand. As taught in high school economics, people want more money and therefore will all go wherever wages are highest, supply goes up. As the demand curve for labor slopes down, the rise in the labor supply will lower wages for everyone. The migrants may benefit, but the native workers will suffer. This is the sentiment President Trump tries to capture when he insists the country is full. The reasoning is so simple, it can fit on the back of a very simple napkin, as in figure 2.1. The logic is simple, seductive, and wrong. First, wage differences between countries or locations more generally actually have relatively little to do with whether or not people migrate. While there are obviously many people desperate to get out from wherever they are, as we will see, the enduring puzzle is why so many others don't move when they can. Second, there is no credible evidence that even relatively large inflows of low-skilled migrants hurt the local population, including members of the local population, most like the migrants in terms of skills. Indeed, migration seems to make most people migrants and locals better off. This has a lot to do with the peculiar nature of the labor market. Very little about it fits the standard story of supply and demand. Leaving home, the British Somali poet Wasant Shire wrote, "No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of shark. You only run for the border. When you see the whole city running as well, your neighbors running faster than you, breathe bloodily in their throats. The boy you went to school with, who kissed you dizzy behind the old tin factory, is holding a gun bigger than his body.